Podcast City Network.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Nest Podcast. This is episode 138. I'm your host, Brandon, joined as always by my co-host, Zach. Zach, how was your week, man?
Yeah, it was good. Spent the weekend just kind of relaxing, mowed for the first time this year. So,
how did that feel? Did it feel like it was baseball season?
Yeah, it was really good. It was super nice weather, so I'm excited.
I actually had to mow for the second time this season earlier today. I got off work a little bit early and I went and I mowed the yard. Over the weekend, it was 95 degrees here in Florida. Today it was a nice 70 degrees. So I was like, yep, today's the day that we're going to pull out the old lawnmower and knock it out. So it was nice. But we have a good episode planned for you guys tonight. We are going to finish up our spring training tour with the American League Central. That's going to be a little bit later in the episode because our special guest had some prior engagements that he had to attend to, and then he's going to come on the back half of this episode. So we're going to kick it off a little bit different tonight, and we're going to clear the bases first thing. So, we're going to get into this a little bit, and I want to kick it off talking about baseball. I want to talk about the Dodgers, and specifically how there was a Dodgers fan that trolled the Boston Red Sox by putting up a huge billboard outside of Fenway Park that said, "Hey, thanks for Mookie Betts." Did you see that, Zach?
I did not.
Yeah, honestly, it's pointless. It's dumb. Like, if you're going to rub the fact that Mookie Betts, got traded to the Dodgers in anybody's face or whatever, why are you going to do it to the Red Sox? It's not anything that we haven't seen. We knew he was good. He won an MVP. He won a World Series. Why does it matter? Like, yeah, you guys have him now, but we also have Alex Verdugo out of that deal. We have Connor Wong out of that deal. We have Jeter Downs out of that deal. All three will eventually be major league players. So we got a 3-for-1 out of that deal. And last I checked, Mookie Betts didn't really do too much in October.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. That's idiot fans from any team or whatever. And I think the Dodgers have a lot of that because they have a lot of bandwagon-y fans. The Dodgers are a huge bandwagon team, I think, especially for baseball. People will tune in October and root for them in the World Series, but they couldn't tell you what the hell's going on with that team in June or July. So yeah, that's right. Brad did mention that it was a 3-for-2 because Price was thrown in there, but it's hard to even count Price as part of that deal because he really hasn't done anything since he's been in LA. He opted out last season, didn't pitch in their World Series run and all that stuff. And I guess we'll see what he is going to bring to the table this year. But that was a massive salary dump for the Red Sox too. Yeah.
So that helped out. One of the other things that I wanted to address in our clearing of the bases tonight, Zach, is that the NFL officially expanded to a 17-game format. What do you think of that? Like, do you think that that's going to be something that you enjoy?
Yeah, for sure. I think it'll be interesting. Do you know if they took away any preseason games or did they just tack this on to the end of it, or do you know?
I don't. Let me look it up real quick to see if there's anything going on with that. But all I know is that they are officially expanding to a 17-game format. And I mean, some people love it, namely the owners.
Yes.
Players seem to not really care too much about it, but I think the fans are going to like it a lot.
Yeah, I think the fans will like it a lot too. And that was one of the big question marks that they had when they were kicking this idea around. this is going to put more tax on the players' bodies and everything. And are they going to get paid more? Whatever. And I guess that'll all get worked out. But I can kind of see the writing on the wall, and that the owners are going to get to rake in an extra entire game's worth of revenue, and everyone else is going to just stay the same until maybe the next CBA or something. But I think if they're going to sneak this in now, then I don't know that the players will be compensated in any way for it.
Yeah, and I know they did toss around that they were going to increase the salary cap for the season going forward, but it's very little. And if you're already under a contract, it's not like you're going to see a lot of that extra bonus or anything. So I can see that they're definitely going to be ticked off. I'm not seeing anything in here that says anything about dropping a preseason game or anything like that, but that is something that I could see coming down the pike that they end up doing, is dropping one of those, because they did play the entire 2020 season without any preseason. So we see that it can be done. Granted, there were more injuries and things like that the first few weeks because guys were out there trying to ball out whenever they weren't fit to do so.
Yeah.
Brad saying 17 games, Goodell is going to screw this up. Goodell screws up pretty much everything anyway, so
we've got 17 games, guys, and every team gets 2 bye weeks.
And actually, that's one thing that it does say on here, is that they're still going to get one.
Yeah, which makes
one
sense.
bye week. Yeah, it would be kind of dumb to extend it like that and then give them just an extra bye week here and there. Some teams would probably benefit from it greatly. Other teams, it wouldn't really matter. One thing that I do know is that we are going to get some pretty good matchups with that bonus week this coming year. It's already been announced that the revised schedules are going to include, and these are just some of them, I'm not going to go down the list of all of the teams, but the Packers and the Chiefs was a game that was added because of this. That's, potential Super Bowl preview if we're really getting into things.
Sure.
We've got the Cardinals and the Browns, which is a battle of former number 1 draft picks, former college Heisman, plus both have pretty dynamic offenses. So that might be a pretty fun game to catch. We've got the Saints versus the Titans, 2 of the premier running backs in the league going head to head. And then we also have the Cowboys and the Patriots, 2 of the most hated franchises in the NFL, squaring off there in Foxborough. So it definitely adds a little bit of drama, a little more potential. And then also you got to think, now that there aren't 16 games and all that stuff, it's going to eliminate that tiebreaker.
Yeah. I think people will love it. Obviously, NFL fans could probably watch the NFL all year. And yeah, I think people will really enjoy this. And that lineup sounds really good. I like that they didn't just throw the Bengals and the Chargers in there or something boring. I like that they threw some good actual matchups in there.
There are some snooze fests. Don't get me wrong. There are some that you're going to be like, oh, well, that one's not on TV. But I mean, these are all games that could be prime time. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
We'll see what they actually decide to put out on TV, because like Brad says, Goodell will probably screw this up, and we probably will end up with the Texans versus the Chargers on Monday Night Football that week. That's like the bonus week, and nobody will really care.
Yeah.
So, speaking of the Texans, I do need to address this as well. I got some DMs this week from somebody that's been pretty upset that we've been talking about Deshaun Watson the past few weeks and his allegations, saying, where was this energy whenever Chad Wheeler from the Seahawks beat the crap out of his girlfriend and almost killed her? Check the tape, guys. We talked about that.
We did.
We said that guy's a piece of crap. He doesn't deserve to play in the NFL. He doesn't deserve to be in the league. And that's all we really had to say about it. We didn't defend him. We didn't say, oh, we'll give him another chance or whatever. No, we said, get him out of here. He doesn't belong.
Yeah.
So go back, check the tapes. The reason that we've been talking about Deshaun frequently is because every week new things are coming out about this case. This is a developing news story. And whereas I'm not going to try to justify it, but Chad Wheeler's incident was only one individual was impacted by it.
Sure.
Deshaun Watson's has multiple. I think we're up to 16 allegations against Deshaun Watson. So Yeah, there's a lot more to it. And it's an evolving storyline. And to that end, I got to give a tip of the cap to Delta War Dog on Reddit. He went out and he made an entire timeline that takes all the allegations and puts them in order, and all the summaries and all that stuff. You can read it right there on his Reddit post. 16,000 people have seen it at this point, so it's not necessarily breaking news for anybody, but it is out there, and it dates back all the way to March of 2020. So as soon as COVID was keeping everybody locked in, Deshaun started going out and doing his thing.
Wow.
At least that's when the allegations started coming from those dates. Who knows if this dates back even further at this point?
Sure. Yeah, that's wild. And I think another thing too about why Deshaun Watson's deal has caught so much more coverage. He's a huge name in the NFL. He's one of the hottest tickets on the market right now. And he's clearly not happy with his organization. So what does that all mean for the future going forward? Like I said last week, our team's going to want to go after him and put up some huge deal for the next 4 or 5 first-round draft picks or whatever the Texans are going to ask for. This is a lot bigger deal than some no-name guy named Zach Wheeler who committed domestic violence, which is wrong, not in and of itself. We covered it. We moved on. But this Deshaun thing is still continuing. We still haven't seen any criminal charges come out or anything. So there's still a lot to unfold here. And that's just the simple matter. If some random person does some sort of crime, you might not ever hear about it. But if a celebrity or whatever does the same exact crime, you're going to hear about it just because of their notoriety.
Yeah, I mean, that's the nature of having, millions of followers on social media and having everybody in the sports world know your name. Like you said, Chad Wheeler doesn't really have that kind of a pull. He was an offensive lineman for a team that doesn't really get much coverage these days. Let's be honest. The Seahawks haven't been perennial favorites to do anything for a few years now. Yep. Since he came along, they really haven't been much of anything. So not many people even know he existed until his incident came out. And then, like we said, he's a piece of crap. He doesn't even belong in the league. Get him out of here. I'm starting to get to that point with Deshaun.
Yeah, I mean they did that with Wheeler. He's at least he left the Seahawks. I know that they voided his contract. I don't know if he got picked up by another team or what, but the Seahawks definitely let him go. And I think you might see that at some point if Deshaun actually does get criminal charges, and if something transpires from those, you might see that kind of thing.
Well, I'm pretty sure Wheeler was formally charged with his domestic violence, domestic assault, right. And chances are he's locked up at this point. So
yeah, that makes sense.
And we talked about it briefly last week. If these allegations turn out to be true and there is proof of any of this wrongdoing by Deshaun Watson, then there's a chance that he could at least start the NFL season behind bars. So to your point earlier, Zach, I think that definitely diminishes his trade value, because teams that were ready to trade their franchise weeks ago, they've stopped calling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
They are not on the phone trying to get Deshaun Watson services right now, and I think that's ultimately going to be what is the big breaking thing for Deshaun, is he's going to be forced to go back to the Texans or sit out or whatever it is that he ends up doing. But this has definitely damaged his reputation. It's damaged his legacy, and it's damaged his spot around the league. I mention Colin Kaepernick, but he may end up in that same vein where he's blackballed from pretty much the entire NFL.
Yeah. And you got to think, if this ends up being true and he gets convicted of some sort of charge, this is worse than that, because at least Colin Kaepernick, yep, all he did was just take a knee. He didn't ever hurt anybody.
Yep.
So Deshaun might be an even worse villain for the NFL.
Absolutely. UFC 260 emanated this past weekend from Las Vegas, and we have a new baddest man on the planet, the new heavyweight champion of the world, Francis Ngannou, did the unthinkable and knocked out Stipe Miocic. What did you think of that fight, and what do you think going forward for that heavyweight division.
That was an insane fight. I kind of had Francis's back in the start of that. For longtime listeners, you might remember a guest that we've had on a couple times, Adam. He used to do his own podcast, but he doesn't really do that anymore. Brandon and him and I have a text thread, and we kind of talk UFC and talk whatever else. And I kind of got his take on, he likes Stipe and whatever. So I was like, no, I'm kind of leaning on Francis here. He's done a lot of training since his first fight with Stipe, and that man is just absolutely just scary. And he went in there and definitively knocked out Stipe. And it was a pretty good fight. I would say that Francis had the control in the fight for the majority of it.
Yeah, no, he did. He was the aggressor. He had octagon control. That's one of the things that the judges judge on, and he was pushing the pace. And you've said it on the show before that he throws refrigerators, and one of those refrigerators landed on Stipe's chin, and it put him to sleep. The image of him falling down and having his knee buckled behind him is something that I was worried about, like, oh man, is he actually going to be injured? Is he going to be able to recover from this? I think he's fine. I think he's all right. But that's a scary sight whenever a knee gets twisted up like that, whenever you're unconscious and just falling.
Absolutely. If you don't believe me about the refrigerator comment, go find some sort of clip of Francis and compare his hand size to whoever he's in the octagon with. His hands are just gigantic. And I mentioned earlier that he had done a lot of training before this fight and since his first fight with Stipe. If you've noticed in the fight, he stuffed Stipe's single leg attempts, and that was very impressive because his first fight with Stipe, he just got mauled on the ground. And I'm assuming his training at that point was, you're a gigantic man, go out there and knock people's heads off. And he's done some training. He's added some techniques to his repertoire, and he's dangerous now. I mean, he was dangerous to begin with, but now it seems like he knows what he's doing, at least a little bit on the ground, and was able to stuff Stipe's attempts, and that was huge.
Now, I know John Jones is next, and we'll get to that in just a moment, but do we see a trilogy fight happening between Stipe and Francis down the road?
That's a good question. I think if they want to throw Stipe a bone, yes, but I don't know if that's the fight to make. Stipe has not necessarily been a big draw for the UFC for whatever reason. He's a really great guy, likable guy.
Great champion.
Yeah, great dude. He's just kind of quiet, doesn't really do a whole hell of a lot. He's not the Conor type where he just makes noise and sells pay-per-views. I don't know if they're going to do that for him. I don't know even what he wants to do. But I could see that sometime down the road, especially if Francis doesn't retain the belt for very long. I think that's more of a chance for them to run it back. But if John takes the belt or something, I could maybe see Stipe and Francis fighting again to then fight John. But I don't know if Francis retains the belt. I don't know if they're just going to let Stipe go back out there.
We got a question from one of our viewers. How about the stupid fight between Jake Paul and Ben Askren?
Man, I mean, Jake Paul definitely knows how to box, and he knocked out a basketball player. So I guess that's something. And then on the other hand, Ben Askren has obviously been in an octagon. He fought with Bellator and fought with UFC for just a tiny little bit and got his
pride.
And he's obviously mostly a wrestler type, but I think he knows what he's doing. I don't know. That's a big question mark for me, because I think Jake Paul is nothing to scoff at, but at the same time, he's no professional fighter like Ben Askren is.
Who has more to lose in this fight? Do you think Jake Paul or Ben Askren? Because go ahead.
I think Jake Paul for sure.
Okay, I agree. Ben Askren, he's retired. He's not a fighter anymore. He's just kind of going out there to try to shut up Jake Paul. If he loses, then they'll be like, okay, so you've knocked out a wrestler now. And they'll still be able to hold that over him. Until Jake Paul gets in there with a legitimate boxer or kickboxer, I think he's going to have those questions. But Jake Paul, if he goes out there and gets knocked out by Ben Askren, then he'll never live it down.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what this whole thing is with him and his brother and stuff. And for whatever reason, they moved from like YouTube and Vine and all that stuff to celebrity boxing matches. And it's very strange to see.
They're getting paid millions of dollars to do it, so why not, right?
Right. Yeah, that's fair. It's a strange move, I think. And I mean, I guess hats off to them for giving it a shot.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow Logan Paul is going to fight Floyd Mayweather. So that's just going to be a shit show.
I heard that got postponed or something. It got delayed again.
I think they're going to do it once COVID is basically completely done and they can pack the arena of wherever they choose to go or whatever. But nonetheless, that's ridiculous.
Just come to Florida. That's what UFC is doing to pack the house for UFC 261.
Yep.
But before we get too far down the line, I do want to touch on the John Jones fight. What do you think of John Jones versus Francis Ngannou for the heavyweight crown?
I mean, John is who he is, but he's not that 23-year-old anymore who won the title. He's got an enormous amount of talent, but to go from 205 to fighting a man who cuts weight to get to 265, good luck. He is scary.
Yeah, no, I agree. Is this the dream fight that Dana White has been salivating over since signing the deal with ESPN? Is this the one that he's really wanted to be able to push, because timing lines up perfectly for it to be their big summer blowout show? It lines up beautifully. You've got John Jones, one of the, if not the greatest lightweight champion of all time, moving up to heavyweight to try to conquer a new division. A brand new defending champion that's a monster. Like, is this a dream scenario for Dana White?
Yeah, absolutely. This is the fight that he's been waiting for. It didn't work out with Khabib and Conor. He wanted to make that happen again. He wanted to maybe make Tony and Khabib happen or something. This is his next golden ticket, and it's going to be insane. And like you said, if this lines up to be that like July 4th timeframe fight card, I look for them to just absolutely stack that card.
And to that point, it's been already announced, I believe, that Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor 3 is going to take place in July at UFC 264. So would that be something that they could add to that card to just really fill that out and make that the summer blockbuster? Or do you think Dana White will get greedy and try to build 2 super cards over the summer to try to recoup some of those losses from COVID?
Yeah, that's a good question too. I don't know. It'll probably depend on what the world looks like come July. If he can pack the house night after night, he might stretch it to get another night of money making in. But man, if you really wanted to go ball out, you could just stack that card with 2 gigantic fights, and there wouldn't be a person out there that didn't buy the pay-per-view.
I agree. Yeah. I just get the weird feeling in the back of my head that Dana White's sitting there thinking like, I can get 1 million pay-per-view buys for this fight. I can get 1 million pay-per-view buys for this fight. Why am I going to put them on the same card and split that? I want 2 million buys instead of just the 1.
Yeah.
Anyway, Tyron Woodley dropped his 4th fight in a row this past weekend. Have we seen the last of T Wood?
I sure hope so. His best days are behind him for sure.
He lost to Vincent Luque. I'm sure I pronounced that last name wrong. Luque. He lost this weekend in decisive fashion, and I don't know, man. I'm sick of seeing T Wood go out there and just lose.
Yeah. Yeah, he didn't have a good run whenever he was champion anyway. He had a bunch of boring fights against Wonder Boy and against Damian Maia. It sucks to see because that dude is super talented too, and they never gave him the love or whatever. And I think that division was kind of weak just in terms of talent until Kamaru Usman came around. And then it was over for Woodley at that point. So I hope he retires soon. And goes off and maybe coaches or whatever he wants to do. So I just don't think he's at the same caliber of talent as these UFC guys are now. Father Time catches us all.
You think we maybe see him bounce around to some of these other federations like Bellator or something like that?
Yeah, I could see that, especially if he doesn't have any other means of work. I know he was doing some commentating for UFC on Fox, but I don't think that they have a show really like that anymore on Fox because they moved to ESPN. And I know he tried like a rap career or something or whatever, but who knows?
Yeah, I hope he stays far away from that one. Sean O'Malley is back and
Yes.
looks like he didn't miss a beat. Glad to see him get back in the winner's circle. So good to Sean. Look for good things out of that kid in his future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people were kind of crapping on him when he lost the fight before this one and thought that he was overrated and it was just hype and stuff. And I think he bounced right back. He's right back to where he was. That kid is another talented superstar in the making. Fans really like him. He's exciting. He's knocked out several of his opponents. And I think he's just going to climb the ladder just like he was before his loss.
The loss that you're talking about, he was also fighting on one leg because he basically lost the feeling in his entire, I believe it was his right leg, whenever he was out there trying to fight. So
yep.
It's hard to fight in the UFC period, but to do so standing on one leg against a trained killer, not your best day.
Absolutely.
But we've been counting down the days, the minutes, the hours till opening day. And we finally arrived at the last week before we get real baseball. And we've been doing this is now the 6th week in a row that we've had talk of a specific division and all that stuff. And we have a special guest joining us tonight who happens to be a fan of one of these teams in the American League Central, the Detroit Tigers. Normally we try to stick with one of the top tier teams of the division, but we decided to bring it to a team that's kind of in the middle of the road and discuss the Tigers tonight. And we're going to be discussing the entirety of the American League Central with our good friend and returning guest, Mr. Brandon Mitteer. What's up, my man? How are you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good, guys. How are you doing? Happy to be on.
I'm doing awesome, and I'm loving that hoodie you're wearing.
I knew you would. I like it. I mean, when I came off the podcast the first time, I was like, I'm showing some love here. So I went ahead and made an executive decision.
I like it. Yeah, it looks good on you too.
I appreciate it. Works with the hat too,
Yeah.
It does. It has the orange in there. That logo is actually the Elizabethton High School Cyclones logo that I've put on there with the football and all that stuff. They are back-to-back, I think they're 4A Tennessee State football champions. We've had several of their players come on the podcast, and we actually had a lot of interaction with them for the past year or whatever, but leading up to their defending their championship, we had them on all summer long, and it was great to get to talk to a lot of those kids. And now a lot of those kids are going off to be college football players somewhere. So it's pretty cool to see them and their journey.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
One of those kids in particular, Deuce Morton, he not only is back-to-back football state champion, but he's 3-time state wrestling champion.
Wow, that's an impressive resume.
He's a stud right there. Five rings as a high school senior.
Yeah,
so
right.
That kid is insane. His neck is thicker than my thighs.
Yeah. He's awesome. But we brought you on here to talk about the American League Central and not talk about high school football. So what do you think about the division going forward? There's a lot of news that's been coming out of the American League Central recently. And I want to kick it off talking about the White Sox because I know the big news that happened in this past week was Eloy Jimenez suffered a huge injury. And he's a guy he was on the verge of being a perennial all-star, perennial MVP candidate, and now he's out for 5 to 6 months with a ruptured pectoral tendon. How big of an impact is that to the White Sox?
I think it'll definitely have a significant impact, but they're just going to have to work around it. I do think they have the pieces there to be successful and probably win the division, even though he's a key member of their team and he went out. But I still think even without him being out with him being out that long, I still think the White Sox will be able to come out strong in the Central.
Yeah, I do agree. I think that they are still the team to beat, even though they have lost that much firepower. That shows how good this White Sox team is going to be this year. I think guys like Yoan Moncada are really going to have to step up and fill those shoes a little bit. Tim Anderson is probably one of the most exciting players in the game, and I think he's going to have to really step it up and to be able to perform. And one of the things that I'm most interested with the White Sox this season is Michael Kopech, a guy that there's been tons of excitement surrounding him. He got called up in 2019, and then he opted out for 2020. So we really haven't seen what this guy can do at a major league level for a full season. I'm excited to see what he's going to do and what he can really bring to the table. Do you know anything about Michael Kopech? Or
That's a new name to me. So I I'll have to look at him. Give him a good look. But if he's has the potential to produce those types of numbers, you might be able to fill in that empty void, having a missing player, having a guy injured.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, he's a pitcher, so he won't be able to put the offensive stats on the board.
Gotcha.
But this dude, he's supposed to be phenomenal. In let's see, 2018 was the last year that we got solid stats on him, and he only went 1-1 in 4 games. But he throws hard, and he's going to be a gem, I think. This dude's 23 years old, and he's already seen some stuff in his life. He's been married and divorced. He's had a lot of craziness happen, but now he's focused strictly on baseball, strictly on getting back and ready to go. So I think he's going to be a real difference maker for that roster and that rotation. One of the big things is on a team full of young talent, young budding all-stars, how are they going to gel with a guy like Tony La Russa? Zach, this is a guy that you've brought up a few times, and I wonder what you think. Like, how is this old man going to interact with these youngsters?
Yeah, it's going to be super interesting because, like you said, Tim Anderson is super exciting. He's bat flipping. He's going crazy. Kids love it. But for an old school baseball guy, that is a huge no-no. You're supposed to just lay your bat down and don't even look at the pitcher and just run your bases and carry on. Tony's either going to accept that this is the new way to play and this is the way that kids play, or he's just going to be an old, crusty, crabby asshole in the dugout, and people are not going to jive with it. And only time will tell. I think he's a great baseball mind, and it's the perfect scenario to bring him into a team with young talent who could potentially go all the way to the World Series. And he could be their guiding force, or he could be just that stick in the mud that ruins everything.
Yeah, and I think Tony La Russa was definitely he's a hire that is going to have some definite impact. He's how he is, but I think with the addition of Lance Lynn, he's kind of a veteran pitcher. He's going to be able to kind of settle down those young arms in the rotation and be able to mentor those guys. I think that was a really good addition, especially since how young that their starting rotation is. I think he's going to help out settle those guys down.
Yeah, absolutely. Lance Lynn was a huge signing because that veteran leadership will go a long way for sure. But in the true nature of it being anybody's ball game, the Minnesota Twins are right there in the thick of things. They have a team that has made it to the playoffs several years in a row. They just haven't been able to get over that hump and actually win a postseason game. I think their streak is up to something like 18 games in a row that they've lost in the playoffs. Something crazy that I didn't even think was physically possible, but the Twins are defying those odds. We know their bats are going to be good. The Twins will always be out there slugging, hitting home runs, hitting bombs. What about the pitching? Is the pitching going to be good enough for the Minnesota Twins that they're going to be able to be contenders, be at least a wild card team coming out of the Central?
I do think that they've made some improvements pitching. However, I don't know if it'll just be enough to compete with the White Sox. I think that the offensive bats, you have Nelson Cruz, Kente Mata, Jose Barrios. Will it be enough? That remains to be seen.
Yeah, agreed. It's going to be really tough to hold off guys like Tim Anderson and just that whole team of straight killers. And even the Indians have some heavy hitters left. And yeah, it's going to be really tough, especially if you're going into the postseason. If the Yankees are healthy and the Twins have to face the Yankees again, are they just going to be a one and done again, just like last year and the year before?
I mean, it's very possible that seems to be the case with the Twins is they know how to get there, but they don't know how to win once they do. But in the offseason, they did go out and they added J.A. Happ and Matt Shoemaker to their rotations, both of which are low risk, pretty decent rewards. If they can be average or better pitchers, then that's a win-win for the Twins, and that's a win for those players as well who would be bouncing back off of lackluster seasons. So I could see that being a pretty big addition. And if Josh Donaldson, if he can stay healthy, I think this is key. If he can stay healthy, that dude, he can bring the rain with some of those bombs that he hits. But the problem is in recent seasons, he only plays about half the games.
Yeah.
So what do you think? Over under of the Twins making the playoffs?
They might be able to squeak in that wild card spot. I actually do have some gambling odds. So Vegas has got them at 89.5 wins for the season.
That's kind of a lot.
I do think that is a lot for the Twins. I could definitely see it going under that just because of the division.
Yeah, I'll take the under on that too. 98, whew, boy. I could see them getting into the 80s, especially
89
or 89. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That makes a little bit more sense, but it's still a little high. I'll still take the under on that. If everything goes right, maybe. But like we said, the pitching, I mean, they're going to have to continue to keep up with people hitting them if they don't have good pitching and if they give up a lot of runs.
I think the thing that the Twins have in their favor going forward is the fact that, like we talked about, Eloy Jimenez is injured. If that throws a huge monkey wrench into the Chicago White Sox all season long, then that could be that nod that the Twins need to get to that 89 wins that they're projected to get. Just out of curiosity, what does Vegas have for the White Sox?
So they have 90.5.
So not too much difference between the two. So right. That Eloy loss could prove to be the difference maker in the division. So we'll see as the season progresses what actually happens. I know Eloy has a career WAR of 2.8. So take him out of the lineup, you lose 2.8 wins per season. That puts them below that projection. So that could be the big difference maker right there. Let's talk about your Tigers. They made some modest improvements over the offseason. Nomar Mazara, Robbie Grossman, and Wilson Ramos, they each bring a little bit of swag, and they also bring leadership to the Tigers. How big is that going to be for bringing up the young guys to have that kind of veteran presence in the locker room?
Yeah, it's going to be huge. I'm especially excited about the addition of Wilson Ramos. Being a catcher, he's going to be that leader on the field to kind of mentor everyone and kind of, and if you've seen any of his spring training so far, he's swinging it. He's swinging it great. He's hitting a couple bombs. Just to have that veteran leader at catcher is going to be huge going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I can firsthand say that a leader in the catcher position can change a team. Absolutely. And I think the Tigers are in need of just something to just kind of kick them into gear. Of course, Miguel Cabrera has been there for years, and they've had some pitchers go in and out, and just never been able to make anything of it. And I hope to see them get on the road to success.
Now, you mentioned Miguel Cabrera. That's somebody that I think has kind of been a weight around the neck of the Tigers for a few seasons now. And then you look up again this year and realize that he's got a $30 million contract for this season. And it's like, wow, once that guy finally retires and moves on and goes to Cooperstown, I think the Tigers will really be in a good position to start a rebuild because they do have some young talent. They have some good marginally decent baseball players that can fill in those roles, but they're really lacking being able to go out and get a superstar because of this contract. So what do you think? I know that's probably a sore spot for you, Brandon, but having that future Hall of Famer just sucking up the salary has got to be pretty sore.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely preventing them from signing any big free agents or anything like that, especially during a rebuild. Having a guy that's making that much on a rebuilding team, it's just all bad, to be honest. Plus, he's had injury issues. He's filled pretty much the DH role. They don't even have him playing first base anymore. So for the most part, he's just swinging the bat for $30 million.
Now, was that a Dave Dombrowski move? Was that one of the last things that he did before he left town, or was that after him?
I want to say that was him. I'm pretty sure it was him. That was a while ago. He's been around a while, but I'm pretty sure that was Dave Dombrowski before he moved on.
Yeah, Dave is known for signing those huge contracts on his way out the door. So,
yeah,
that money.
I know it as a Red Sox fan because we've seen Dombrowski just give huge contracts to guys that definitely don't quite deserve them based off of past performances. For us, it's guys like Nathan Eovaldi who got paid huge amounts of money for one game that he pitched in the World Series.
Right.
That's about it. At least Miggy's on a Hall of Fame trajectory.
Right. And I don't want to talk all bad about him. Like, obviously, he's at the back end of his career, making a ton of money, not really producing what he should. But we love him in Detroit. Like, he's given this franchise quite a bit. I mean, even though, he's on the back end of the career, but Triple Crown winner, that's something that hasn't been seen since, Carl. And we love Miggy, but he's on his way out.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of one of those things where you love the guy or whatever, but he's holding you back. And if he could just retire and be done with it, then we'd love you forever and we could move on.
Right. Yep.
And I just confirmed that it was Dave Dombrowski that handed out the 10-year contract to Miggy. So that brings me to my next question. We're talking about guys in the front office. This guy isn't necessarily in the front office. He's going to be down in the dugout with the players. But what do you think about the AJ Hinch impact? For listeners that aren't quite sure who AJ Hinch is, this is the man that was the manager of the much hated 2017 Houston Astros. He was suspended by Major League Baseball for a year, and now he's back in the game and back in the American League, and now with the Detroit Tigers. What do you think AJ Hinch's impact is going to have on this young team?
So obviously a very controversial hire. The instant impact around Detroit was we're happy to have him. And that's mostly because we are a rebuilding team. And I think that, he has controversy. What he did, what he did with the Astros, I'm not okay with that. But he's going to be able to kind of rebuild himself with this team, if that makes sense. The Tigers are coming up. And he's going to kind of be able to rebrand himself with this team depending on how it goes, right? Obviously, he's got to prove himself on a whole nother level, right? So I think the general feeling around Detroit is that we're excited to have him here. He's like him or not, he's been there. But, I like the hire. I'm excited to see where it goes. And obviously controversial, but we'll see.
I think that's a good way to look at it. I think it's a good way to take it in as that, this is an opportunity for not only the team to rebuild, but it's a way for him to rebuild his image, rebuild his brand, and prove like, hey, I'm not just that guy that cheated. I can also manage a good baseball team. I don't need all that stuff. All I need are the players.
Right.
So we'll see what happens with that. He's obviously good at what he does, or he would have never been given that opportunity to come back into baseball. If people thought that he was just the cheater guy, then he would have not been given this opportunity. So I do wish you luck for that. We'll see what happens. Yeah.
If he bringing on any garbage cans in Comerica, we're going to be kicking him out though. I'm not. So.
Yep.
Well, some of the other teams in the American League Central are also going through rebuilds. The Royals are another team that's been trying to rebuild, and it seems like they've been trying to rebuild ever since the 2015 World Series. Of course, immediately after that, they lost Hosmer and they lost a couple of their other stars from that team. And I think there are only 2 or 3 players from that 2015 team that are even still around. I know Perez is still around, and that's the only one that really stands out to me. But they are building. They are trying to get some new guys in there. I know the Red Sox news was that Andrew Benintendi was traded to the Royals. That's going to be a guy that you're going to get to see in the American League Central that has potential to be good to great, but he hasn't really shown it the past few seasons. And I know this spring training hasn't really been his best performance either. I think last time I checked, he was just barely around 200 batting, which he's a guy that should be putting up 300 and 30 plus home runs a season, but he's not been able to deliver that. What did you think whenever you heard that Andrew Benintendi was coming to your division and you're going to have to see him 19 times a year?
I wasn't really concerned about it just because of his recent production. I think he definitely room for improvement there, and it could be a force going down if he does make those improvements. But when he was signed with the Royals, they're a somewhat rebuilding team. Vegas has got him at 73.5. I think extending Salvador Perez and Hunter Dozier was a huge thing.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as him personally being a threat, it remains to be seen with him still. He's got to get that hot hand again.
Yeah, this spring he's batting .225. He has 9 hits, 5 runs, no home runs, and 3 RBIs. So he's not really delivering that power that Red Sox fans got used to seeing back in 2018. But we'll see what happens. Back in 2018, he was out there balling for them. So he has potential, but he's also a former number 1 prospect in the game. So he's been at that level for a long time now, and he just had a weird falling off. He tried to get too big. He tried to get too bulky so that he could become that power hitter, and it messed with him.
That sucks. I hate to see that. Another huge pickup for the Royals was Carlos Santana, I think. That's probably going to be a big bat in their lineup. So maybe that team is making something of themselves. Like you said, they've basically been in rebuild since they won the World Series and have kind of floundered ever since. So they've made a few moves this year, and I guess we'll see what it brings for them.
Yep. Well, all we can do is watch. We're at the point now to where we are, 2-3 days away from opening day, and it's all over but to just sit down and watch them play. And we're going to get to see a full 162 this year, and I'm so excited for that. We have one more team to talk about, and that's, of course, the Cleveland Indians. This is a team that coming into the offseason, I was like, okay, this is going to be another team that could be a contender in the American League Central. But then all of a sudden there was a fire sale, and you saw Carrasco leave. You saw, of course, Lindor get traded to the Mets with Carrasco. And it's almost like they've already raised the white flag there at Jacobs Field. They still play at Jacobs Field, or they changed the name of that?
Progressive Field.
Progressive Field. I knew it sounded weird whenever I said it.
Clevelanders still call it the Jake.
Yeah, I mean, that's just like in Milwaukee, they call it Miller Park. Right. Even though now it's American Family Park or whatever it is.
Yeah, something crazy, yeah.
It's still Miller Park.
Right.
Whatever. But my big question for the Indians is, now that we've got those guys have departed, the Lindors and all those guys are gone, can guys like Shane Bieber, can they repeat what they did last season, or was that kind of a fluke? Can guys like Jose Ramirez get back to the mashing that he was doing in 2019, or was that just a one and done type season for that guy? He was running away with the AL MVP vote for the first half of 2019, but then he regressed terribly. So I don't know what's up with the Indians. I know they're trying to rebuild and get some pieces, but what do you guys think about Cleveland?
So the Francisco Lindor trade was they love Lindor there in Cleveland, so that was kind of that hurt him a little bit.
Sure, for one of the best shortstops in the game.
Yeah, and he around Cleveland, he was just so approachable and everything. I had a buddy who used to work in the clubhouse for the Indians, and it would always say how nice of a guy he was. And yeah, it was tough to see him go just because I lived in Cleveland for a while, but he's definitely a huge loss. The success of the Indians really depends on the success of Shane Bieber and Jose Ramirez, I think. Yep. I think if Jose Ramirez can get help from Andrés Giménez and Josh Naylor, I think that they'll have a solid little core around Jose Ramirez to kind of have some offensive production. As far as Shane Bieber, he's emerged as the ace, but he's also got Zach Plesac and Aaron Savali there to kind of help him out and see. They do have a young guy named Tristan McKenzie to be on the lookout for, just to help out round out that offense. Vegas has got them at 81.5, so it's kind of at the lower end of the league. So I mean, it remains to be seen. Obviously, the Lindor loss is huge, but it really depends on production around Jose Ramirez, I think.
Yeah,
Zach,
and I think you got to think with the Lindor trade, they were never going to be able to sign him for a deal. He wants max of everything, max money, max years, and I think he'll get it. But Cleveland was never going to be able to afford that. So at least they got something for him and instead of just letting him walk in free agency. So
Right.
I kind of look at the silver lining on that one. It's a huge hole in your lineup and defensively, but I mean, at least you got something for him.
my question is, why can you say that about somebody like Lindor, but when Mookie Betts gets traded, everybody wants to crap all over the Red Sox and be like, how do you trade away Mookie Betts?
I think if Lindor would have gotten to the Dodgers, you might see that kind of thing. I think it's all the fan base.
Sure.
Agreed.
It's just ridiculous. It's pretty much the same exact scenario. The Red Sox traded Mookie Betts because he no longer wanted to be in Boston. They got something in return for him, and people are crapping all over it like it was the worst deal ever made. But then whenever Lindor basically forces the hands of the Indians to trade him, people are like, oh, well, they're just rebuilding.
I think it's centered around kind of his personality, maybe. Like, not to say anything about Mookie Betts, right? But like, they were kind of okay. Like, he's given, like he took him to not him, but they went to a World Series while he was there. They lost, but I mean, it doesn't take much to please Cleveland fans. So
Yes, it does not.
I mean,
Yeah.
to that point, Mookie Betts won an MVP and a
Right,
World
yeah,
Series in
yeah.
Boston. So
I think it's like Zach said, it's a fan base. I think.
yeah,
I agree.
I hate Red Sox fans sometimes.
Yeah, everyone has their fans that are just, they criticize every little thing that the team does that they think is wrong, and then if it all works out, then they're the best team ever.
Right.
There's just fair weather either way.
So my final question about the American League Central for you guys is, who's going to win it? Who wins the American League Central at the end of the year?
Okay, so I think it's going to be the White Sox, even though they have the injury. Vegas has got them at minus 125 to win the division, which is that's not even money. The clear favorite. I'm going to go with the White Sox.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. This is the White Sox division to lose, which they very well could if things go awry. They've got an old man in the dugout as their manager, and that could either be good or bad. And it's basically up to them to win it. And I think the Twins will make it interesting, but I think they're just going to come just a little short.
I'm going to make Nathan Mindeman very happy because I'm going to say the Minnesota Twins are winning the American League Central this year. I think Josh Donaldson's going to have that bounce back year like he had in Atlanta, where he has 30 plus bombs, 35 plus bombs. I think he's going to stay healthy, and he's going to be able to play in the majority of games, which is going to be huge for him going forward. And I think the Twins are going to be able to barely edge out the White Sox, who are going to suffer because of that loss to Jimenez. If we would have had this episode last week, I would have said the White Sox.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see just what happens.
I think that injury is going to plague them all season long. And I just don't think they're really going to be able to get it going. I don't think they're going to slip out of second place. I think they'll at least be a wild card contending team this season, but I don't think they're winning the division.
That's fair.
So
Hot take.
I mean, it is what it is. It's more fun whenever we don't agree on everything.
True. It is always more fun if we all don't agree.
Yeah. And plus, when's the last time that anyone gave the Twins the outright win it all token?
Oh, geez.
I mean, I'm not saying they're going to win in the postseason. I'm just saying they're going to win the division.
No, yeah, right. I got you.
I don't want to go on record and guarantee them winning a postseason game because I don't think anybody could do that one. But
Right.
Nate, if you're listening, I got you on this one.
I wonder if he does listen. I hope he does.
I hope he does too. That would be kind of cool.
That's our old What the fuck do you call him?
Supply officer.
There you go.
Our old boss.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He's from North Dakota, which I guess he just adopted all the Minnesota teams.
Makes sense. Right next to each other.
I think he went to college in Minnesota as well, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So anyway, you guys have anything else you want to add? Anything else you want to say about the AL Central or Major League Baseball in general?
So I do want to say one thing about the Royals. Just I've seen a couple reports on them when I was, preparing for this podcast. Just be on the lookout for them as a dark horse. They have a couple young arms in the bullpen, a couple flame throwing guys that might be able to, push them to a couple more wins than you might think from them. Just be on the lookout for that team.
So what you're saying is that whenever the Royals are ultimately sellers at the trade deadline, that they have a lot of pieces that they could sell on to try to get future picks and future talent. Okay.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah, I can see that too.
Like for these American League teams that have deep pockets that are ready to make that postseason push, they'll be calling on the Royals.
Right. Yeah.
Because I don't think they're going to. What Vegas have them 79 wins or whatever. I think I would probably take that. Yeah, 79 sounds about right.
They had actually 73.5.
Yeah, I would give them probably 75 and feel comfortable saying 75.
Yeah, like you make a good point. If they do start hot, they're going to be sellers at the deadline. So, they're just going to sell off and then go off the rest of the season on their bench.
Yeah, and I think that's another small market team like the Indians. I mean, how many fans can they possibly have? They're in a weird spot where the Cardinals, which is a much bigger team just in terms of fans, just across I-70. And I guess maybe they have that middle of the country where they don't really have any of their own teams like Nebraska, Kansas, kind of stuff like that. But they've got to have a really small market. I can't imagine them spending big money on somebody.
Yeah, definitely not anytime soon.
Yeah. I think they kind of got lucky with that World Series win in 2015 too. Just the stars aligned just perfectly to get them those really great players. And then after that season, it was dump away because there's no way you could have afforded everybody.
Yeah, that 2015 World Series kind of came out of nowhere. I've grown up in the AL Central. For me, it came out of nowhere. Because the Royals have always been that team that's on the outside looking in 4th, 5th place in the division. To see them in that World Series, it was a surprise for me to see, just because in my whole life I haven't really seen them in there.
Well, you saw them in the World Series in back-to-back years because they were also in the 2014 World Series when they lost to the San Francisco Giants.
Well, I guess the 2014 surprised me, not 2015.
Either way.
Yeah.
Yeah, they lost in 7 games to the Giants. So they almost won it in 2014, and then they did come back and win it in 2015. So they had a good team for a little while, but then since then it's been downhill.
Yep.
Back to the Royals, I know.
Yep. Back to the Royals, and you're familiar with. It's been, and it was a long time before that they did have anything going, back when it was George Brett and all those guys back in the 80s, probably before you were even born. So
yeah. Like I said, in my lifetime, they've always been on the outside looking in,
Bo Jackson played for them too, didn't he?
I think so.
He sure did. He sure did. Yep. Next week, we get to talk about real baseball games. We get to talk about the first opening weekend of the Major League season, and I'm very excited for that. Zach will be back to give our way too early predictions for MVPs and Rookies of the Year and World Series champions and all that good stuff, which inevitably none of it will come true because that's the nature of predicting things 160 games early. But it is what it is. We're going to do it anyway, just for a good time. So we hope that you'll tune back in next week and listen to our wild and zany predictions. And we hope that you will join us every week right here on the Nest Podcast. Brandon, why don't you go ahead and let people know where they can find you and where they can find your Twitch stream?
So yeah, my Twitch stream is Sergeant Mittens 21. Stream Call of Duty Warzone. It's having its problems right now, but we're getting there. You can find me on Twitter. I'm Mitteer on Twitter as well. So yeah, thanks again for having me, guys. I'm always having a blast talking to you guys about sports. So
absolutely.
Yeah, we love having you on. Thanks for joining us. And you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. Just look up Nest Podcast. And we'll be dropping content weekly and trying to get some more stuff going pretty soon. Trying to encourage Zach to do some more video game type stuff. So
Absolutely.
if you're a fan of video games, get in his DMs and tell him, hey, review these video games that I like. Maybe he'll do one of them every now and then. Who knows? All right, guys. We'll see you next week. Peace.